Sarah Mitchell's story began in smoke, ash, and disbelief, yet it unfolded into a testimony of quiet strength, stubborn faith, and a kind of financial resurrection that no one, least of all she, expected. On the morning of September 11th, she was restocking shelves in her tiny convenience store when the ground shuddered, the sky darkened, and her life's work vanished into a dust cloud that swallowed Lower Manhattan. In minutes, she lost her store, her apartment, her belongings, and the sense of certainty that had held her together since her husband's passing. What remained was a backpack, a handful of documents, and a heart that refused to surrender. In the weeks that followed, Sarah slept on borrowed couches, prayed through sleepless nights, and stared at a future she didn't recognize. 42 years old, suddenly homeless, carrying debt on a building she could no longer step into, she felt stripped of everything except the God she still believed was listening. Yet faith alone did not rebuild her life. It partnered with grit, humility, community, and the wisdom to take small steps even when the horizon looked impossible. Sarah accepted a job in a diner kitchen for $15 an hour, work far below her experience but essential for survival. She cleaned houses on weekends, saved every dollar, and lived with the discipline of someone determined not to drown. When insurance paid far less than her loss, and when developers offered quick money for the empty lot where her building once stood, she wrestled with fear and temptation. Selling would have been easy, but guided by counsel from her pastor and a conviction that God was not finished with that ground, she chose the harder path: keep the asset, trust the process, and rebuild slowly. Her church became the hands and feet of grace. Members donated funds, offered meals, shared rides, and reminded her she was not alone. With $9,000 saved, Sarah hired a small team from her congregation to build a simple commercial structure on the condemned lot. Nothing beautiful, just concrete walls and a metal roof. Instead of reopening a convenience store that required her presence, she made a decision that would alter her financial future. She rented the space, $700 a month, steady, dependable, untouched by daily labor. It was the seed of long-term stability. While working at the diner, Sarah saved relentlessly. 3 years later, she purchased a small piece of land outside the city and began constructing a modest home, adding to it month by month as funds allowed. The process was slow, frustrating, and filled with obstacles, but it was progress, real, tangible, and hers. By 2006, exactly 5 years after losing everything, Sarah owned 2 properties outright, her rental space and her newly completed home. The woman who once stood crying behind police barriers now stood debt-free, secure, and anchored in a future she had rebuilt brick by brick. Her journey offers deep, practical wisdom for anyone facing loss. First, disaster can become the doorway to a better design. Sarah's old life depended on 12-hour workdays. Her new life rested on passive income that granted peace and margin. Sometimes God removes what we cling to, not to destroy us, but to redirect us. Second, assets matter more than quick cash. Had Sarah sold her lot, she would have escaped debt but forfeited long-term security. Instead, she kept the land, built on it, and watched it grow in value. Cash vanishes, assets multiply. Third, diversify your income. Before the tragedy, Sarah had only one source. When it disappeared, she was vulnerable. Afterward, she built multiple streams: rent, hourly work, side jobs, which created stability and resilience. Fourth, community is essential in crisis. Sarah survived because others stepped in with housing, work, and encouragement. When we invest in people during good seasons, those relationships sustain us during painful ones. Fifth, rebuilding takes time, real time, not weeks, not months, years. But slow progress is still progress, and consistent steps lead to complete restoration. If you are standing in ruins today, financial, emotional, or spiritual, hear this. Sarah was not special, privileged, or unusually lucky. She simply chose not to let her loss define her. She chose patience over panic, discipline over despair, and wisdom over impulse. You can make the same choice. You can rebuild, even if the first step is small, even if your hands shake while taking it. And maybe the most powerful truth in Sarah's journey is this. God often rebuilds us from the inside out before He rebuilds what is around us. In those early months when she felt stripped of dignity and purpose, Sarah learned to pray differently. Not for fast miracles, but for daily strength. Not for immediate answers, but for guidance one step at a time. And slowly, step by step, the ground beneath her feet became firm again. She discovered that loss can clarify what truly matters. Before the collapse of her world, Sarah carried burdens she never recognized: pride, self-reliance, exhaustion disguised as productivity. After losing everything, she learned to receive help without shame, to rest without guilt, and to trust God in ways she never had to when life was predictable. Her faith grew not in comfort, but in crisis, and it shaped the woman she became in the years that followed. She also learned that financial wisdom is deeply spiritual. Stewardship is not about wealth, it is about responsibility. It is the discipline of planting small seeds even when the soil seems barren. It is choosing long-term stability over quick relief. It is trusting that God blesses diligence, integrity, and patience. Her rebuilt life was not a miracle of sudden provision. It was the harvest of steady obedience. And perhaps that is the truth someone listening today needs most. You may feel overwhelmed by debt, grief, setbacks, or the weight of starting over. But nothing in your story disqualifies you from restoration. Nothing is too broken for God to rebuild. When you take the next wise step, no matter how small, you participate in the miracle He is shaping over time. So stand firm, breathe deeply, and believe that rebuilding is not only possible, it is already beginning. And as you reflect on Sarah's journey, remember that every restoration begins with one surrendered moment, one brave decision, and one quiet belief that God is already shaping what comes next for your life. You just spent 8 minutes for God, 8 minutes to grow in wisdom, faith, and peace. See you tomorrow. Verse for your meditation, Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 4. I will build you up again, and you, virgin Israel, will be rebuilt.